and welcome to season 13, episode 34 of the Ubuntu podcast. In this episode, we're going to discuss why Ubuntu is no longer exciting, and we will discuss your feedback. Joining me, as ever, are Alan.
Hello.
And Martin.
Hello, hello.
Alan, what have you been up to recently?
I have been crafting.
Crafty? What have you been crafting?
So I have a mild obsession with TikTok, and I get all my recipes and craft ideas from 1-minute videos made by random people on the internet, looped to music. And I recently saw one, which was someone just making little crafty envelopes. And I thought, I'm going to have to send some things soon, because what with it being non-denominational end of year celebration. And I thought I could send some greetings cards to people, and I thought I would make some because I've got a bit of time on my hands. And I saw this little video and it inspired me to make some envelopes and some little cards. And so I've been sat folding card and crimping it and sticking it and stuff. And it's been quite relaxing and quite enjoyable to sit at the table and just chill.
You showed me a video with what appears to be a special tool, especially for making and scoring and cutting the corners of envelopes. Do you have one of these devices? I have.
I've fallen into the trap of, here's a thing I bought off TikTok, meaning I've seen a video on TikTok and then immediately jump on Amazon and buy the thing. Wow. And I've done this a couple of times. You see these little videos of life improvement, life hack, or whatever they are. Anyway, I saw this video, and it had this little plastic thing, and it's got these like measured gradients and grooves and stuff in it. And you just put a little square of nice card, and you groove it in a particular way. And then there's this little stampy thing, a bit like a hole punch, but it cuts the corners off the paper and cuts indents out, so you can fold it nicely. And it just makes it easier to make an envelope. And it's quite a departure from sitting at a computer to sit and fold and crimp paper and write cards to people. So I've been quite enjoying that. And yes, I bought one. Yes. Excellent. Basically watched the video for a minute about a dozen times and thought, I need one of those. freeze frame the video in order to find out the brand name of the thing, and then search for it online and bought one, and it arrived 2 days later. So yeah.
Excellent. What an age we live in.
I know, right?
And on that note, let's get on with the show. So, I watched a video earlier that suggested that Ubuntu had got boring.
Okay.
This was Ubuntu and not Ubuntu podcast, just to be sure.
Well, we never get boring. No, not at all. Anyway, so I listened to the video, I listened to the points made, and I had sympathy for some of the points of view put across, because I not like in the old days when Ubuntu releases would come out and I would clamour for the release, and I would, whatever was running on my machine, it didn't matter. It was more important that I was running the latest Ubuntu release, and I would install it, and even if it broke things, I would think, brilliant, now it's new and shiny. But these days, I don't rush to install the new release so much. I know, it's got the latest version of GNOME and it's got some improvements, and I can probably make use of some of them, or some of them might not really be for me, but it's not as exciting as it used to be for me. And I was wondering if, do you two feel the same way? I mean, Martin, obviously you know what's coming next, so surely by the time it's released, it's old hat for you anyway, isn't it?
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, yeah, being involved in Ubuntu and Ubuntu Mate, we decide what we're going to work on in the next 6 months. Some of those things are initiatives of our own, and some will be collaboration with upstream GNOME or other projects in order to, deliver features that we want to see in Ubuntu. I don't know. Is it that things have got boring, or is it just stable and reliable now?
Well, bear in mind that what you watched is one person's video, is the opinion of one person on the internet that we're discussing. And I would say maybe it is less exciting. Maybe there are fewer big show-stopping things, hold the front page, here's a thing that's now available. But then the flip side is things have matured a lot since then. You know, it's now got to a stage where you can have multiple things open and play audio from all of them. And previously you could only play audio from one thing at a time, or 3D accelerated video playback and stuff wasn't great. And you had to edit text files. And now it's just got so much easier that there's not so much clamor for it because the thing you've already got already works. And so upgrading is just newer stuff. It isn't necessarily, you know, tons of brand new features and all these new shiny objects that you've got to collect because they've all got higher numbers. It's just iteratively better.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I was thinking about that I got excited about in the past was when we started getting 3D accelerated desktops. And, you know, obviously we had at the time the spinny cube and all of the whizzy effects, but that's kind of like stabilized into just the things which are actually sort of useful day-to-day visual things. And it occurred to me that that kind of thing, that only happens once. We had this sort of generation of releases where that came in and it stabilized and it broke completely and then it restabilized and then it sort of settled down a bit. But, you know, we were discussing recently the things that were in the latest release for the desktop, and a lot of them were like things that are exciting if you're an OEM or if you're an enterprise customer, but not if you're a massive geek who just likes faffing about with things. So is it just that we haven't had another big change in desktop technology that we can grab onto and everyone's going to have, but Ubuntu has it and does it well?
Well, yeah, you don't want a new audio subsystem every 6 months and a new display server every 6 months. I mean, as in a brand new one, you know, rewritten from the ground up every 6 months. You want to build upon the stuff you've already got and make it better and better. And once it matures, yeah, okay, at some point someone's going to say, oh, that's no longer maintainable. Let's create a new thing, you know, C, Pulse Audio, Pipewire. But you don't do that all the time. And as a result, no, you can't have an exciting release every time. And I think it's rose-tinted spectacles because I don't think every release was exciting back in the day either.
I'd just build on that and say those sort of earlier releases of Ubuntu, I can remember UDS coming out with, we're going to make the default audio player this. We're going to make the default torrent client this. We're going to make the default mail client this. The photo manager this. And there was quite a regular flip-flopping of the default applications. Mm-hmm. And the problem with that is, whilst that's exciting because it's like, oh, look, I have a new I have Shotwell instead of F-Spot as my photo organizer, that doesn't give users any sense of sort of reliability and stability when the applications are switching beneath you all the time and you're not providing migration tools to get your data from, you know, the thing you were using to the thing you're using now. So there's a lot to be said for having continuity of sort of the core applications.
One of the other things that in the video he mentions is that Ubuntu doesn't stand out, that there are others, there's more competition, better competition in desktop Linux. And he went on to list Linux Mint, Elementary, Zorin, and Pop! OS, all of which happen to be based on Ubuntu. And yeah, I can see how all of those distros have some unique selling points. They've got something about them that you might want over and above Ubuntu. Like, I'm not saying any of them are doing something that's impossible on Ubuntu, but they're all doing something to differentiate themselves. But you know, the thing they're not doing is all the boring stuff that we do that makes Ubuntu work. That's the thing that they're not doing. We've got 100+ engineers working on all the stuff that nobody actually cares about in those other distros. And so they get to spend their time doing the fun, shiny stuff on top. It's like, when it comes to Christmas and you get a Christmas tree, you spend your time decorating the Christmas tree. You don't spend 10 years growing the tree. We grew the tree. You put the decorations on it, Linux Mint.
And I would say that it's not that they don't care about those things like security and patches and fixes and, you know, all the rest of it that goes on underneath and maintaining kernel compatibility and all of that stuff. They don't have to care about it because we're taking care of that for them. And like you say, they look after the 5% on top.
Right. And that maybe we should have, and I know we've talked about this in the past, having like a skunkworks team that figure out what those things that our users want are. and develop those things and do them natively on Ubuntu, whatever they might be. You could say, Elementary, they've got cohesive set of applications that are built specifically for their distro. Zorin, their USP is that it looks and acts very much like Windows, and Pop's USP is, the tiling window manager and making sure it works perfectly on their System 76 hardware. Whatever their USP is, we may be missing something, and maybe we need to focus on some of those shiny things. But we also have to do all the other stuff as well. That's the problem. We also have to do all the kernel, the foundation stuff, the desktop stuff, all the packaging of GNOME, all the packaging of all the other stuff underneath. We still have to do all of that, and we don't have infinite developers.
So is the problem that Ubuntu is now Debian stable?
No. I think the issue is this, that Ubuntu has matured, and in the heyday that was referenced, which I think was between 2008 and 2012, Ubuntu was not shipping any devices from the tier 1 OEMs. That has happened in recent years. And as a result, we have a whole bunch of enterprise expectations now and factory certification expectations that the devices that get shipped with these things, they're maintained, they're security patched, they're updated, and when your updates come along, they don't break the system. So we're more focused on creating a stable environment, predictable, and I'll come back to predictable in a moment. And the other thing is that where we're innovating on the desktop is around empowering developers to innovate on top of Ubuntu. So you've got the distros, but then we did a whole bunch of work to enable Flutter for a new class of application developer to come along and bring their apps to Linux. And we did something similar with Electron a couple of years ago.
I think that's an interesting point. The people who complain about this distro versus that distro, I think are missing the bigger picture. And they're spending too long doing the thing that a lot of nerds have been doing for the last 10 plus years, which is futzing around from one distro to another and trying something out and then recommending people jump onto this distro and then recommending people use that distro. And this one's got this good thing and that one's got that good thing. End users do not care. The thing that end users want is applications. They want those applications and they want the desktop to work. They're not so much caring about what version of this package is there and what version of that package is there, which is what nerds care about. Nerds care about the fact they've got the very latest version of this or that. And yeah, okay, gamers are a unique class of snowflake who want the very latest kernel and Mesa and drivers. Okay, that's very different. But the vast majority of people, they want a set of applications that just work on a regular basis. And when they go home on a Friday and they turn their computer off and they come back to work on a Monday and they turn it back on again, they want it to carry on working. And they don't want to have to go and read a blog post on some wiki page somewhere in order to figure out whether their system will work for them on Monday morning.
So maybe where we've ended up is that we don't need to be exciting in the same way that we used to be because Ubuntu is really successful. Like if it's on the devices that people are buying for their companies or people are selling in shops, then it's getting way more users than it used to when it did. I installed EdgeEF and I had to switch to a different distro because I couldn't run that desktop on my machine. It just completely broke, which, I suppose that was the kind of thing you're alluding to, Martin. We can't do that anymore because there's expectations on it being stable, but the result of that is Ubuntu has more users, and that's what really matters, is people actually use the software and get stuff out of it. And, therefore, it might not excite everyone on the internet all the time, every time there's a release, but it does the job that it's meant to and provides a useful free software platform for people.
Right.
So does that mean that actually we don't have a problem to solve? We don't need to think about whether we should, throw away GNOME and go back to Unity, or we don't need to worry? I mean, we've spoken before about whether we need to go to a rolling release, and, I think we've determined that that's unnecessary since Martin went and built it.
I found it interesting that some of the comments were, we need to switch away from GNOME, and there's a whole thing about, Unity, and that was, an Ubuntu specific desktop environment and all the rest of it. There was a large number of people that hated Unity And I know there was an awful lot of people that loved it as well.
A vocal number of people who hated Unity.
Yeah, you said large. I don't think that's fair.
Well, all right. Okay, vocal then. But it's interesting to me that now we're aligned with the sort of the de facto desktop environment. It's suddenly boring, and people are basically, are they asking for Ubuntu to be more controversial again? I mean, is that what they want?
Well, I think it's worth noting, you both mentioned the OEM deals and things, and I'm pretty certain we had very few OEM deals and very few tier 1 OEMs who were shipping before we shipped Unity. Yeah, there were some who shipped with Ubuntu with GNOME 2, but it really took off after Unity, Netbook Remix and Unity. Mm-hmm. That's when it took off. Mm-hmm. And so the suggestions of like going back to Mate, yeah, for some certain use cases, Mate is great, but it is still a GNOME 2 paradigm, right? Mm-hmm. And while I know there are some people who criticize either the GNOME project itself, the way the developers behave, the way the foundation behaves, and he alluded to some of this in the video in a pretty tasteless way, so I'm not even going to talk about that. But I don't think you can say that the software is, in inverted commas, bad. Like, there are millions of people out there using GNOME right now on Ubuntu on machines that they have paid money for. Over £1,000. They've probably bought a computer and it's running GNOME, and they're using it on a daily basis. And they don't really care about the little minutiae of whether it's Pulse Audio and whether it's System D, because it's a tool. It's a computer. It's a thing that does a job. And you can see this in other platforms like Windows, for example. Now, some would argue Windows is a rolling release, but it isn't. They still have major releases. You still get major seasonal updates. I just had one on one of my Windows machines. And so Windows has become very boring as well. There's not a lot going on. It's because that's not where the innovation is. That's not where the users care. Where the users care is the things that they run on top. And so I think maybe the thing that we could be doing better is better applications and supporting bringing more applications to users and better applications to users. I don't think it helps us to switch out all the foundation underneath the users and switch to something else, because frankly, what would we switch to? Yeah, okay, you can rattle off a list of desktop environments, Mate, XFCE, KDE, and whatever else, and a couple of them have things that are quite good. But GNOME has a large user base and actually has a team of developers behind it, a significant team of developers behind it. I don't see the benefit in switching away from it.
No, and there'd be a lot to consider doing that as well. I mean, the other thing is that in order to attract more users to Linux desktop, there's lots of people that will tell you there's different ways of doing this, from marketing, adverts on television and making gaming great and all the rest of it. But the thing is that for all of those people that switched from Nokia Symbian phones and BlackBerry phones to iPhones and Android phones, they did it because they could walk into a shop and buy these new devices. Mm-hmm. And I think that where we need to be focusing our attention is addressing the needs of the OEMs and enterprise customers to get more certified Ubuntu devices in web stores so more people can buy them in order to grow our audience and make more money so we can hire more developers and do more work. And part of that is exactly what you've said, is get more developers making apps and bringing their apps to Linux. And that's why we did that work for Flutter, for example.
And if you look at the other operating systems, contemporary operating systems, where there is innovation going on, and I can name 3, OS X, iOS, and Android. And you look at why those 3 things are innovating hard is because people buy devices running those operating systems. Mm-hmm. Like the new version of Mac OS is due out as we record this week, right? And it's going to be shipping on brand new machines. And this is a driver for people to buy new things and put money in the pockets of that company. Same goes for brand new iPhones running iOS with new updates and new features that go along with the hardware. And the same goes for Android. When there's new Android devices that have new features and new devices that have new hardware that needs exploiting, right? We don't have that because we give the whole thing away. And it's not tied to some super expensive hardware that we're going to generate revenue for us on. We have to work with other companies like the Dells of this world and Lenovo's who are building the hardware, and we make the software that goes with that hardware. It's a very different model. But if you look at the operating systems that are super innovating in the user-facing stuff, it's not, oh, this has got a new version of some fundamental library underneath in Android or in iOS. Users don't care about that. It's the user-facing stuff, the applications, and the stuff they see that they want.
So, listeners, we're interested to hear what you think. Is Ubuntu still exciting for you? Do you still clamour to upgrade to every release? Or do you think that there's things which we could do to invigorate things and make things more exciting for you again? You can email your thoughts to show@ubuntupodcast.org. And now it's time for some command line love. Martin found something this week.
I did. I've got a solution for all of that unused video RAM that you have in your computers.
Oh dear, is your video card too big?
Not anymore. I found out how to use all of its video RAM. I found a project called VRAM FS, and it's a VRAM-based file system. So in the show notes, you'll find some instructions on how to compile this tool. It's not hard. Trust me, it's very simple. And then how to use it. So I had a bit of a wheeze with this. I allocated 2 gigabytes of my 24 gigabytes of video RAM to the file system. And then I was able to install Xonotic into the video RAM file system and then play Xonotic from the video RAM file system on the GPU.
Is this actually useful for anything? Is there something which would actually be really good to put in your video RAM, or is this just it's possible so someone's done it?
Well, I was doing it because it was why wouldn't I try this?
Yes.
But the actual reason is that video RAM is many, 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 many times faster than regular system memory.
Right.
So if you have a task which is write intensive, needs to do lots of I/O, you can do it in video RAM and plow through it much, much quicker.
Interesting.
Have you not got lots of normal RAM?
Not fast enough.
It's not fast. Yeah, I've got 256 gigabytes of normal RAM, but yes, I wanted...
You could have just said yes.
Yeah, all right, yes. Yes, I do. I have plenty of RAM. And now plenty of RAM disks to go with it.
Interesting.
And now it's time for all of your wonderful feedback. Matthew Leonard emailed us at show@ubuntupodcast.org.
A few months ago, you discussed how long you've been upgrading the same machine. My boss claims to have been upgrading the same machine since the Hardy Heron era. I think the 8.0 series. Is there a command that would show how many upgrades your machine has been through? Well, I don't know if you can see the upgrade logs because they may get rotated and deleted, but you can see the original install media that was used to install your system. If you look in var log installer, and I think there's a file in there called Casper or media info, something like that. And in that file, it lists the ISO image that you used to boot from to originally install. So we're not talking about the upgrades in between. We're just talking about the original media, which will give you a date stamp of when the thing was originally installed. And that has the release of Ubuntu and the actual date. So if you downloaded a daily image partway through the release cycle, you've got the date in there as well.
And if you haven't changed your hard disk or SSD or what have you, you can inspect the file system creation date to see when your file system was created, to see how long it's been around.
Dave and Claire Phillips emailed us.
Just a note to say that Ubuntu 2010 is the best release since 10.04. The whole setup is well polished, but the speed and integration of snaps are superb. Previously, snaps had been a big no-no for me due to the startup times being slow and poor theming, and that's all changed now. LibreOffice snaps of Calc and Writer do not even have time to show the splash screen before launching. This has never happened before on Deb, Flatpak or Snap installs. GNOME has also sped up nicely with the 3.38 release, and being able to sort my apps and remove and create folders in the app drawer is really the icing on the gingerbread.
Nice.
Thank you very much for your kind words, Dave and Claire.
Andrew Davis emailed us.
In episode 32, Mark said he was unhappy with the Switch Joy-Cons while playing Hades. 8-Bit Dough make a wireless USB adapter. I recently ordered one so I can use my Wii U Pro and PS3 controllers on my Switch for split-screen Mario Kart. It's a lot cheaper than buying new controllers.
It is. However, when the only other controller I have is a Switch controller,
that's even cheaper.
It doesn't work with this adapter. So unfortunately, that wasn't an option for me. I didn't have an alternative wireless controller knocking about. Danesh Manoharan emailed us.
Quick feedback on tiling window managers. I moved to Pop! OS recently from Arch as a test for at least a month. I think their tiling manager extension implementation is really good. I only use it when I'm working and turn it off when I'm not. With the 2010 release, there is an exception option to ignore specific windows that are not meant to be maximized.
Was this something we complained about?
No, I didn't try their implementation. I don't know. I was using one from the GNOME extensions called Gtile.
Oh, yes.
And I know they have a similar thing, but I don't think it's based on any of the prior extensions. I think it's all their own work, but I've not tried it.
Chris Thompson emailed us.
Caught your recent rundown on tiling window managers. I'm a KDE fan and simply cannot bring myself to use another DE, tiling or not. I've found what for me is the best of both worlds with KWin script called KWin Quarter Tiling. This script with just the default configuration was perfect for me. I get tiling that I can easily disable as needed with my favourite DE. Just thought I'd share this as an option for KDE users. I find it much better than the KWin tiling script that's packaged with KDE.
Nice.
And we'll have a link to that in our show notes.
Laurie emailed ThinkPad Corner.
I recently saved enough pineapples and bought a Lenovo X1 Carbon 8th Gen with an Intel 10th Gen CPU, which is now my third ThinkPad. Yes, the sickness has spread, Alan. In the USA, I've noticed it's available with Ubuntu pre-installed, and this machine also has been certified by Canonical to run it. It has, this is true. However, here I could only purchase with Windows 10. We don't have that Linux option. My question is, why is this option available in some markets only? I'll answer that in a moment. And 2, is it possible to somehow get an official image for the Carbon and then install this on my new Lenovo, or do I have to go it alone? So, the answer to your first question, which is why is it available in some markets, I actually spoke to Lenovo about this last week, I think it was, and it's simply a matter of them updating all of their web store infrastructure in order to support these configuration options to give Ubuntu as a configuration option on those devices that support it. So they are working on it, and they were apologetic that it hasn't all been done yet. But they do anticipate that all of their global web stores will have Ubuntu configuration options when they've finished doing all of their back-end work. And with regards to can you get an official Ubuntu image, kind of. So if you install Ubuntu 20.04 or newer on a certified device, during the install, if you click the give me the extra drivers, it will detect if you have a certified device, and it will enable all of the extra bits that you would have got in the official factory image during the install. And even if you've done the install without that option ticked, if you then go into the driver update manager post-install and you're on a certified device, it will prompt you and say there are these additional bits available for your device to make it better, and you'll get, again, all of the tweaks and tuning that those devices need. So yes, you can kind of get the very close to the factory experience.
Michael Longval also emailed ThinkPad Corner.
I wholeheartedly endorse Alan's suggestion of using T-Series ThinkPad rather than X-Series. I have many ThinkPads, and for me, the T-Series is the epitome of what a laptop computer should be. Over the years, I've purchased, all used I might add, a T420, a T520, a T61P, as well as the W520. Among these, my daily driver is the T420, which is the last model to feature the old-style 7-row keyboard, which is an absolute dream to type on. I have heavily modified this machine, replacing the screen with a full HD wide gamut one, replacing the 2-core i5 with a 4-core i7, adding a self-encrypting SSD and a third SSD in the optical bay. Ubuntu 2004 works flawlessly. Not bad for a computer that was released in 2011. This is fabulous. My X220 is the same generation, the same vintage as his T420. And yes, it has the best keyboard and is brilliant. But mine is the X series that, if I had a T420, then yeah, I would probably be doing the same kind of mods that Michael is doing to his. Good work.
And that's all of your wonderful feedback for this week. And that's all for episode 34. Thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to get in touch with us, you can email show@ubuntupodcast.org. You can find us on YouTube. You can leave a comment on our website, ubuntupodcast.org, or you can come and chat to us in Telegram. If you go to our website, there is a link there where you can find our Telegram channel. Thank you very much to everyone who supports the show on Patreon. And if you would like to support us, either by a monthly donation or by a one-off PayPal donation, you can find the details for that at ubuntupodcast.org/donate.